something has changed inside the automotive industry. And this time, it isn't about horsepower. It isn't about design. It isn't even about fuel economy. It's about what your car knows about you. Modern vehicles are becoming computers on four wheels. They can connect to your phone, track vehicle data, record driving information, communicate with cloud services, and in some models, share information with external systems. For years, this technology was presented as convenience, connected navigation, remote features, emergency assistance, vehicle diagnostics, smartphone integration. Everything was supposed to make driving easier. But there's another question that consumers are starting to ask. Who controls all that data? Your car can generate enormous amounts of information: speed, location-related information, vehicle status, charging behavior. For electric vehicles, maintenance information, and information from connected services. The technology itself isn't necessarily the problem. The problem is understanding what happens after the data leaves the vehicle. Who can access it? How long is it retained? What is it used for? And most importantly, does the driver actually understand what they're agreeing to? That question has become increasingly important. As connected vehicles become more common, a modern car can be incredibly convenient. You can check its status from your phone, lock doors remotely, find charging information, receive maintenance notifications, get navigation assistance. But convenience always comes with trade-offs, and sometimes those trade-offs are buried inside pages of privacy policies. Most drivers don't read them. They simply accept the terms and start driving. That's understandable. Nobody wants to spend an hour reading legal documents before starting their car. But the automotive industry is changing rapidly. The vehicle is no longer just a machine that takes you from one place to another. It's becoming a connected digital platform, and that changes the relationship between the driver and the vehicle. The question isn't whether your car is intelligent. The question is, how much information does that intelligence generate, and who gets to use it? That is where this story really begins, because the next generation of vehicles may collect far more information than today's drivers realize. And if consumers don't pay attention now, they may discover the consequences later. The biggest change inside modern vehicles isn't always visible. You won't necessarily see it under the hood. You won't hear it from the exhaust, and you won't feel it through the steering wheel. It's happening inside the software. Modern vehicles contain dozens of electronic systems, sensors, cameras, control modules, connectivity hardware, and increasingly, software services. Together, they create something very different from the traditional automobile. A modern car can communicate. It can receive updates. It can connect to smartphones. It can communicate with cloud services. And some vehicles can continuously generate different types of vehicle information. This isn't automatically a bad thing. In fact, some of this technology can make vehicles safer and more convenient. A car can warn about maintenance, assist the driver, call emergency services, provide navigation, monitor battery condition, or help diagnose a mechanical problem. But every connected feature raises a question: what information is being generated and who controls it? This is where the situation becomes complicated. Different manufacturers can have different policies, different countries have different privacy laws, different connected services can collect different information, and even within the same manufacturer, the rules can change between models and markets. That's why a simple statement like, "Your car collects data," doesn't tell the whole story. The important part is the specific vehicle, its software, its connected services, its privacy policy, and the permissions the driver accepts. Another major development is over-the-air software. Modern vehicles can increasingly receive software updates without visiting a dealership. That's incredibly convenient. A manufacturer can potentially improve features, fix software problems, or update vehicle systems remotely. But it also means the software inside your car can change long after you bought the vehicle. Think about that. With a traditional car, the physical machine was mostly fixed when you purchased it. With a connected vehicle, the digital experience can evolve. Your car can become more like a smartphone than an old mechanical machine, and that creates a completely new relationship between manufacturers and drivers. The manufacturer may continue providing software services after the sale. The vehicle may depend on online systems for certain features, and drivers may need to understand which functions require connectivity. That's why the fine print matters, not because every manufacturer is secretly doing something wrong, but because the technology is becoming complicated, and consumers need to understand what they're buying. There's another issue that gets even more interesting: data ownership. Who owns the information generated by a connected car? The answer isn't always as simple as people assume. It can depend on contracts, privacy laws, the type of information, the service involved, and the country where the vehicle is being used. That's why the future of automotive privacy will probably become a much bigger debate, because eventually the question won't simply be, how much does this car cost? It may also be, what am I giving up to use it? And that is a question every connected car buyer should start asking. Here's where things get complicated, because the technology is only half of the story. The other half is the paperwork. When you buy a modern connected vehicle, you're not just buying a physical machine. You may also be using connected services, mobile applications, cloud platforms, navigation systems, remote control features, and other digital services that come with their own terms. Most drivers don't read every page. They simply accept and continue driving. That's normal. But connected vehicles make those agreements more important, because privacy policies can explain what categories of information a service may collect. They can explain how information may be used. They can explain when information may be shared. And sometimes they explain how long certain information may be retained. The details matter because vehicle data isn't one single thing. It can include technical information, diagnostic information, connected service information, and depending on the vehicle and service, other categories may be involved. This is why headlines saying, "Your car is spying on you," can be misleading. The reality is more complicated. Not every car collects the same information. Not every manufacturer uses data in the same way, and laws can vary from one country to another. So the responsible question isn't, is every car watching me? The better question is, what does my specific vehicle actually collect? That's something drivers can investigate. Start with the owner's manual, then the connected services terms, then the privacy policy, and finally, the settings inside the vehicle and companion application. You may discover that some features require connectivity. Others may work offline. Some permissions may be optional. Others may be necessary for a particular service. Understanding that difference can make a huge difference. Another important point is data security. Connected vehicles are computer systems, and computer systems need security. Manufacturers continuously work to protect connected systems against unauthorized access. Software updates can be part of that process, but cybersecurity isn't something that can simply be solved once. Threats change, technology changes, vehicles change, so security has to evolve too. And this is where the future gets interesting. As cars become more connected, cybersecurity will become a normal part of vehicle ownership, just like changing oil, checking tires, or maintaining brakes. Drivers may increasingly need to understand their digital settings as well as their mechanical ones. There's also a bigger industry question: what happens when a connected service is discontinued? If a vehicle depends on an online service for a particular feature, what happens? If that service changes, what happens? If an application is redesigned, what happens? If the manufacturer ends support? Years later, these questions are becoming more important as vehicles become software defined and consumers are beginning to ask them, because a car can physically last for decades, but digital services may have different lifespans. That creates a new challenge. The car may still run perfectly, but some connected functions could depend on systems outside the vehicle. This is one reason consumers need to look beyond the showroom. Don't just ask how powerful the engine is. Ask what software runs the car. What services does it depend on? What information is involved? What happens if I disconnect it? And what happens years from now? Those questions may sound complicated, but they're becoming part of buying a modern vehicle. The automobile is changing, and drivers need to change with it. So, should you be worried? Not necessarily, but you should be informed, because connected car technology isn't disappearing. It's becoming a bigger part of everyday driving. The smartest response isn't panic, it's awareness. Start with your own vehicle. Find out which connected features your car actually has. Check the owner's manual. Look through the manufacturer's privacy information. Review the settings inside your vehicle and check the companion application. If your car uses one, you may discover that some features require data collection, while others can be adjusted. Understanding those options gives you more control. Next, keep your vehicle software up to date. Software updates can improve functionality and may address security vulnerabilities. If your manufacturer provides official updates, follow the recommended process. Don't ignore important software notices. Your car is now partly a computer, and computers need maintenance too. There's another simple step that many drivers forget: secure your accounts. If your vehicle uses a connected application, use a strong password. Don't reuse the same password everywhere, and enable additional account security when available. Your vehicle account can contain information you don't want a stranger accessing. Also, think carefully before giving a connected service more permissions than it needs. If a feature doesn't require a particular permission, you can check whether that permission can be disabled, but don't turn off safety-critical systems without understanding what they do. Some connectivity can support important emergency or security features. The goal isn't to disconnect from everything, it's to understand what you're connected to and why. There's also a bigger responsibility for manufacturers: transparency. If companies want consumers to trust connected cars, they need to explain data practices clearly, not hide important information behind confusing language. Drivers should be able to understand what information is collected, why it's collected, how it's used, and how long it's retained. That shouldn't require a law degree. The automotive industry is entering a new era. The car is becoming a connected device, and that creates new opportunities: better diagnostics, smarter safety features, remote services, software improvements, more personalized experiences. But it also creates new responsibilities for manufacturers, for regulators, and for drivers. The biggest lesson is simple. Don't believe every scary headline, and don't blindly trust every technology claim. Check the facts, read the details, understand your vehicle, and make informed decisions. Because your car is still your car. The technology should serve you, not confuse you. And as vehicles become more intelligent, consumers need to become more informed. At the same time, the future of driving won't simply be about engines or batteries or horsepower. It will also be about software, data, connectivity, and control. That's why, the next time you buy a car, don't only ask, how fast is it? Ask, what does it know? And perhaps, even more importantly, what happens to that information? Because the smartest driver isn't the one who fears technology, it's the one who understands it.